Hello, everyone. Hello, everyone. I'm Pranav Kalavala, and I'm joined by the amazing Angus Fender.
Oh, well, aren't you sweet? Yeah, absolutely. We are back for some more fantastic ACC racing as I see someone drive straight off the track, which you can't see, but that's not important. Yeah, so round three of the BUSR ACC GT3 Winter Championship takes us to a very soggy Zolder. One of the most difficult tracks in this game, wouldn't you say, Pran? Especially when you add a bit of rain.
Yeah, exactly. It's got heaps of undulations and many a curve that'll catch our drivers out. And yeah, it's going to be very, very challenging. It's challenging even in the dry. So in the wet, it's another beast.
Yeah, you are
Yeah.
not mistaken at all. It's littered with curbs that can spit you into walls, as we've seen in many previous seasons, and a lot of corners that invite a bit of a dive bomb, which can also cause a few incidents. The last time we were here, in fact, I remember there was quite a big turn one crash that took out around 7 people, I think, if my memory serves me correct. So we'll hope to avoid that tonight. But, you add in rain, what can possibly go wrong? As qualifying has just started now, as we look at Anna Foster, currently right at the front end of the Alumni Championship, first on track.
Yeah, and it looks like she's got a pretty comfortable lead in that championship at the moment, around 20 points gap between her and Marley Watts. So it does seem to me that if Anna performs well and brings the heat this round, that things will be a-okay for her.
Yeah, 27 points is the championship gap from Anna Foster to Marley Watts in the Alumni Championship. But Zolder's a whole different beast to Valencia, and especially from round one, let's not forget. So anything can happen around a track such as this, especially with that low, slung, sleek McLaren. It's not one for taking curbs.
Yeah, and when you need all the traction in the world in the wet, this car does not give you it in low speed. It is very, very aggressive, shall we say, on low speed corners. So it takes a lot of throttle control to get that car under wraps.
Yeah, you are not mistaken. Let's go for a tour. Yeah, let's go for a tour of the lap. So into turn one we go. This is Erst Curve. I'm going to mispronounce all of these because we are in Belgium and corner names are hard. Into Sterrenwachtbocht, which is turn number 2. Tightens up on you on the entry and then opens out into the exit through Kanalbocht now, down to Lucien Bianchi-Bocht. These names are really long. One of probably the most flowing corners on this track, being the start-stop nature with all these chicanes. A short shoot up to the Klein chicane, I can say that correctly because it's by far the easiest name to say. Missing that first curve for the McLaren and then leaping over the second one with a bit of a flourish with 10s on the judges' scorecards. Down through Sacrament-Schelling, down through Buta and into the Villeneuve chicane. The three-way, right, left, right, almost like a bit of a reverse Singapore sling. Monstering the curbs this time through was Anna Foster. Cleanly out the other side, leaning on that traction control that's there to catch you, especially in slippery conditions like this. Back over the crest one more time and then down into Boulderbergbocht, which is the slowest corner we have on this track. First gear, really bring the car to a stop and square it off early to get the drive out the other side. Through Jochen Rindbocht and then only 2 more corners to go. It is Jackie Xbox, of course, all named from famous racing drivers throughout the years. Into the final chicane, missing that first curb. The sausages will punish you around the track like this. Square it up early, drive to the line. And for a first lap, as a reference, that's not a bad example at all. 34.5 lays down the marker.
Yeah, just bedding herself into the qualifying session, it takes a bit of time. They're going to have to adjust to a lot of changing track conditions, especially from their practice session beforehand. So each one of these drivers is essentially driving a different track than what they used to. So as we see Charlotte slightly overshooting it there. But yeah, it's going to be quite a tough ask for some of these drivers to, push themselves and find where the grip is on certain corners. And yeah, it's going to be a challenging one, but it's one that all of these guys will relish.
Yeah, absolutely. As yes, what I have just noticed is that the track is significantly wetter than what we had in practice. So we know it's going to be wet, but the level of rain is always changing with 16 cars, 16 GT3 cars on track, clearing that water off of the surface. These times are going to tumble, and already Anna Foster is challenged at the top as James White, our leading student driver so far, puts in a 34.8, a very low 34.8, but a 34.8 regardless, to put himself top student by a reasonable gap. But just as I say that, what a time. Ben Gilroy take about 7/10 up on the best that Anna Foster can do so far with 10 minutes left on the clock. That is the gauntlet everyone is going to have to chase.
Exactly, and it'll be extremely good for Gilroy's championship prospects if he's to keep this going, because yeah, James White and Ben are currently separated by just 1 point, and that can make all the difference with Gilroy getting that P1 qualifying position. It will be invaluable for the next couple of races, and I think James White will need to, find another gear in this qualifying session, as we see Marley Watts with his beautiful Rev Sport livery going through. It really is a look at that one. Chicane. Exactly.
Yeah, just through Jackie Xbox.
Little flame pattern. Yeah.
Up to the line, it moves up to P4, and you were saying James White needs to find another gear. He's got just the same amount of gears as Ben Gilroy. McLaren versus Ferrari. It's 2007 and 8 all over again. 0.06 of a second separates them at the top of the standings, but Charlotte Perkins drops a bombshell in. This is the track evolution we're talking about. It's going to keep on finding time. The top of the times are going to keep on changing because the grip is coming to these drivers now. It's wetter than it has been in the practice session. Ed Haskell proves just how slippery the conditions are, going for a bit of a drift in the sole Mercedes tonight in the distinctive color scheme, let's say, Shedify Racing. That seems fitting. Yeah, these times are going to keep on coming down, and Gilroy's moved the marker even further away, but this is the trend we're going to see for the remaining 8 minutes and 50 seconds.
Yeah, and you can see Ed muscling that Merc around these corners. It's got a brilliant curb clearance, which helps a lot. But yeah, it's just about trying to rotate the car through these chicanes, and it's proving a bit tough with that Merc, which is a very stable platform, shall we say.
It really is. You'd think that in these damp, slippery, wet conditions that the mid-engine cars would have a pretty significant advantage. And I mean, you look at the top six, that's kind of all you need to know. With the engine and the majority of the weight slung out over that rear axle, naturally you have more load on the rear tyres than any front-engine car can manage. So I'm not particularly surprised at the moment to see mid-engine cars 1 to 6 with the fastest front-engine car, the proper car, being Owen Goldsmith in P7. Here we see Ben Gilroy just climbing over the brow down to Boulderberg Bocht one more time. He's been a front runner in every race he started this season. Won the sprint race in Valencia last time out, let's not forget. And as you say, very much in the fight for this student class championship. NSE points for his university can go a long, long way over the course of a year with 3 BUSR championship scoring points. And well, he's definitely it's definitely a statement of intent, isn't it, from a driver who has absolutely nothing to lose.
Exactly, and coming in, it's his first season in the BUSR, and he's already showing that he's got all the talent in the world, and he's putting that talent on display at the moment, really pushing it, trying to show that, he's a genuine contender.
Well, with a time like that, I think the questions have pretty much been asked already. It's been the trend in the BUSR of the past few seasons that there's a few usual suspects always lurking around at the front, and some people who have made progress from their very first outings in BUSR, looking at the nights of Ed Haskell, Danila Astrakantsev, Cam Gold and Marley Watts. They've always been improving, finding time. Anna Foster as well falls into that category, as does Charlotte Perkins, in fact. And then we have Ben Gilroy turn up out of seemingly nowhere and knock them all down a peg. It's very unusual that we see someone appear in the BUSR with so much fire and vigor and be able to turn a wheel as well as any of them.
Yeah, and the thing is that the BUSR allows this, it provides this platform, shall we say, for people to showcase their ability to people. It really does show that if you can dominate BUSR, then you can go on to do great things. You know, we've seen it with yourself, Angus. We've seen it with Joe Scher, you know, Cameron Bridport, the lot, like SRO esports drivers that we're seeing. And I have no doubt that if Ben Gilroy wants it enough, then he'll be able to get to esports championships.
Yeah, it's a tricky task balancing a degree with a sim racing passion, isn't it? Especially when you think of how time consuming sim racing can sometimes be. Balancing your studies, well, it should take priority, I'll be honest, it always should. But sometimes you want to find that last tenth, you want to find those last few extra margins that are going to mean the difference between being a Ben Gilroy on pole and looking down towards the likes of Charlotte Perkins second in the Alumni Championship, in the Alumni standings so far. Half a second covers them, but that's such a huge gap at the top of the table. 4/10 to P2 is definitely something that will make Ben Gilroy smile. And we haven't seen a gap this big at the top of the standings for quite a while, must be said. You're looking a couple of years back now, until we've had one driver that's just had so much raw speed that they've been able to start at the front and clear off. But you are right, Pran, with the way BUSR goes. Of course, not to exclude the likes of Alexa Gates, Anna Foster, AOR champions, both of them Alexa Gates livery designer for Jensen Button and David Brabham's esports teams, Rocket and Brabham respectively. I should know that. I work for them. And of course, a GT World Challenge driver herself and a more female race winner. So plenty of talent in amongst the BUSR, and what a great place to hone your skills.
Exactly, and the BUSR has taught me plenty of valuable skills as well about the ACC platform. It's allowed me to, you know, be more knowledgeable and, you know, share my expertise a little bit more with my drivers in my team, Visceral Esports. So, yes, definitely a lot of learning that you can do in the BUSR, and it is a fantastic place where like-minded people like yourself, like me, can just chill and, you know, enjoy sim racing for what it is, which is competitive, but also can be fun. As we see Owen Goldsmith in his BMW try and get that car further and further up the standings. It's going to be tough though. That BMW can have traction issues in low speed, similar to those McLarens. So we'll see how well his setup is dialed in, eh?
Yeah, very much so. Yeah, Owen Goldsmith, one of the few drivers to be running double duty this season, running the two most competitive leagues that BUSR run, the Formula One League, in which he is very much a championship challenger, and ACC as well, where he's a bit of a new face, really. Turned up last season, gave it a bit of a go, loved the competition, and is now back for more in the sole BMW. I can't believe I'm saying sole BMW on the grid. It's unbelievable to think how the BMWs always seem to be one of those lesser picked cars. I'm not sure if it's the weird grille or the fact that it sounds a little bit muted, but it's always been a competent platform, and I'm frankly stunned not to have more BMWs and Mercedes in amongst the field. It seems to be the McLaren and Ferrari show, really.
Yeah, but I think the thing is with the BMW and the Mercedes is that it takes a little bit more time to get adjusted to it. With the McLaren and the Ferrari, it's a little bit more plug and play. From what I've seen, the beginners, because as an LFM rookie, I have seen grids with nothing but Ferraris and McLarens. So it's very, very sort of two-dimensional, shall we say, for beginners. It's either one car or the other. The rest of the cars, once you sort of develop and hone your skills, you can then start to experiment. But most people, you know, pick a mid-engine car that is a bit more stable and predictable, as opposed to the Mercedes and the BMW. But,
yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. They're definitely the most plug-in and play of all the cars, must be said, and that's why you have McLaren's littering the timing board at the moment. Ben Gilroy still holding that fastest time from James White, who's climbed back up into second place. And then we have Jake Kirkham and Paige Willocks, who are lesser experienced on the platform, just getting started. And yeah, McLaren definitely proving to be. It's always been a popular car, but since the Zebra came out, free car for everyone. Really, really popular, incredibly fast on some tracks. Cough, cough. Spa, please fix. But coming into Zolder, I wasn't thinking it was going to be one of the tracks that really played to the McLaren strengths. There aren't that many aero-heavy corners, are there really? And likewise with the Ferrari.
Yeah, but the main thing is that it has a lot of traction zones, and when you get the car hooked up, it can really fly. And there's a lot of sort of low to mid speed corners around here. So with the McLaren's acceleration, it's hardly much of a doubt. But yeah, I mean, I drove with a McLaren for my first ever BUSR season. I absolutely loved it, as terrible as I was. So
I don't do yourself like that.
Come on, I was about 6 seconds off the pace, crashing everywhere. I have definitely improved. I will say that. Oh yes, it was brilliant. You know, I mean, ACC has always been extremely fun, and BUSR allowed me to have even more fun. And the main thing with the McLaren was it was a very floppy car, shall we say, mid-corner. So
floppy car. I've never heard that used as a description before. But floppy or not, it's still the fastest on the times. And James White, the main real contender, actually abandons his final lap. So there wasn't an improvement there. Looks like Ben Gilroy here is going to hold on to the pole. And he also dives for pit lane. And it actually looks like, looking at that weather radar, that the rain is slightly increasing over the next half an hour. So maybe the track's just falling away from them slightly. Marley Watts, currently in 6th, finishes a lap, moves to 5th, finds 2/10 on his final run, displacing Josh Lodge, who's going to try and retaliate around the final corners. All kinds of crossed up over the curb. Get that power down, run up to the line with the shortest route, hugging that wall. And it wasn't enough to pip Marley Watts in the end. Just the alumni runners left to go. Looking at Anna Foster and Charlotte Perkins, our top 2 in alumni so far. And Charlotte's been one that's really impressed me this season, actually. Never really appeared in the picture for challenging for championships and overall race wins, but has always been incredibly consistent. Getting in those results can really pay dividends in a championship as long as this one, with so many different track and weather combinations.
Exactly, and knowing uni students, they've got a very hectic schedule. So things could change and they may not be able to race. And that consistency will help massively there.
Absolutely. And Danilo Astrakaantsev, not particularly impressed with how his qualifying's gone, slams into the wall after the line. And that's a very less attractive Ferrari than we would normally like to see, especially in that very nice standard in-game livery, actually, it must be said. It is an absolute looker. And as we can see, appears like there may be some minor server issues. Alexa Gates, as well as being a very capable livery designer and driver, maybe needs to have a little bit of tweaking going on with the server front, because yeah, Alexa, what are you doing? Sort it out, huh? And don't worry, my camera, that's my flatmate in the background. He's allowed, he's a friend.
A friend of BUSR indeed is Ishan.
He really is the one and only Ishan Wells. Yeah, you cannot complain with the Ishan. But whilst we have a small break in the action for now, it is fantastic again to be partnered with Special Effect, the charity for gamers, developing dedicated gaming software and hardware for people of all ages with mental or physical disabilities. We have a small video from them, and we're going to play that right now whilst we get the race server back up and booted.
Nobody likes being left out. That's why Special Effect are helping people with physical disabilities to play video games. But this isn't just about having fun. The gaming setups we create are personalised, so people can play to the very best of their abilities. And that opens the door to inclusion and independence, confidence and creativity. Help us level the playing field and create more magical gaming moments. Because it's everyone's turn to play.
Always fantastic to be supporting Special Effect once again. I think it's our second or third season now supporting a charity as fantastic as this. One I've worked with quite closely in the past. I actually developed a little bit of a story here. I actually developed a hands-only steering wheel. I know it's a steering wheel. You don't use your feet on a customer. And they were fantastically well pieced together aluminium internal ring and external ring, so you could use your thumbs for the throttle and the back of your hands for the brake. It was really fantastic, actually. I drove it on, what was it I drove it on? I think I drove it on Forza Motorsport 6, I think it was at the time. It was a little while ago now. But yeah, it's just fantastic to see what the support, them being a charity and all, what the support from everyone out there can actually really do and help people with.
Yeah, and it's incredible to see, you know, the accessibility of racing games to people. And for Special Effect to, you know, produce things like this for people that, you know, have certain physical ailments, it's extremely good to see. And we are immensely proud to be supported by Special Effect during our BUSR seasons.
Absolutely. I have just received in my ear that the server is going back up. Alexa did a bad thing, and instead of a 75-minute race, it was a 20-minute race, which is not what everyone was expecting to see. But that is all sorted now. We can jump back in amongst it and look at some very nice liveries, shapes, and colors go around a wet Zolder.
As we see, I'm just returning to the pits, I guess.
Yeah, just waiting for this timer to tick down before going to the grid. But whilst we are here, 16 cars will line up for today's race. It's the first wet race of the season, Pran. Zolder is a track that has notoriously caused a little bit of action in the past. So what are your thoughts heading into that turn one around that very wide first sector, wide and flowing? It invites you in for a bit of a dive bomb, doesn't it?
Oh, yes. It is an extremely, you know, uncompromising track when it comes to racing, as we see Marley doing some donuts within the pit lane.
Oh, that's a good looking livery.
Oh, it's beautiful, isn't it? But yeah,
he does know how to put together the paint scheme.
Exactly. That man can cook with liveries. He made mine. So
I mean, it looks like he can cook anyway. The livery looks like fire, so maybe he's doing some grilled burgers or something on his car.
Oh yes, oh yes. But yeah, I mean, this track is extremely, like, turn one is extremely wide, but a lot of corners are extremely tight. So you'll probably end up seeing a couple collisions here and there if people just get the braking zone slightly wrong, especially going into the chicane. It takes, you know, one car dive bombing and the other car to yield for things to make, like, for you to make it work. But it's going to be good either way. And I hope, I mean, our drivers are capable enough not to cause collisions. They've got the experience under their belt. So I do hope that things will be calm, collected, and yeah, smooth for a start, and that we see some good racing in the end.
Yeah, I think we're all very much looking forward to that. So the front of our grid then, Ben Gilroy, James White, our two leading challengers, quite comfortably in the lead of the Student Championship, actually. It's looking like a bit of a two-horse race between these two so far. They are on the front row. These two hard chargers for the overall biggest championship we have, being the student one, is the one you actually get, you know, NSE points for. So if you're what's your mindset into dispatching someone of Ben Gilroy's defensive capabilities? He's a bit of an unknown, really, in the BUSR in terms of how he actually races.
Yep, and when you're in that sort of unknown situation, there's always a bunch of uncertainty on track. You doubt yourself a little bit, but knowing the experience that James White has on this platform, he's a very capable driver himself. He'll be able to manage it perfectly fine, and I have no doubt that the race will get interesting with both of them battling.
Yes,
We
very
see the
much
session
so.
being forwarded. So
Yeah.
things are very close to getting sorted out. They
Yeah,
are
so
currently, checking the setups and making sure that things are up to scratch,
oh,
ensuring that they don't.
we've had a late entry. It looks like from the very back of the grid, Mr. Jonan Turner has jumped in after having appeared to have not been racing tonight. So good to see a 17th car on the grid. Yet another McLaren, though. But he's a driver that's definitely quick when he gets it right. So if he can charge his way through from the back, it'll be very interesting to keep an eye on how his race does pan out. But he's got no experience. Driving in the wet around a place like this does punish you for those small mistakes.
Yep, but John is very adaptable, and I think it'll take 1 or 2 laps for him to get up to speed, and hopefully things will be okay. I think the key thing is that he's quicker than the people around him, so just takes a little bit of bedding in, a little bit of getting used to, and it'll be fine. It just depends on how safe the setup is, though, because this car likes to bite and bite hard.
Yes, absolutely. There were some setups floating around in the server. The very generous Charlotte Perkins is working on something special that she sent in. I would trust it from Charlotte. I wouldn't trust it from me, because when I ever send setups in, it's what I like to call a Coach Dion setup, which ultimately is try and make the car as physically undrivable as possible. So you're talking wheels pointing in completely different directions to each other, brake ducts being completely mismatched with brake pads 4 on the front and 2 on the back, with the rear as low as it can be, the front as high as it can be, to create a car that doesn't turn. That's what I do when I send setups around. If you ever see me send a setup in, don't use it. But from Charlotte, I'd probably trust it.
Well, I did use your Bathurst setup and I crashed 5 times, so...
See, don't trust setups I send in. That's the learn.
Yeah, it's just trust yourself and back yourself, because with Angus's setups, they're very esportsy. And if you can't drive a car that wants to kill you every single corner, then those setups aren't for you. Try Charlotte's setups instead. They're a lot nicer to drive. That's the crux of this situation.
Yeah, do as I say, not as I do, I think is the way to go. If I'm ever working on something, but yeah, Charlotte's one of those drivers that's really improved since her debut in BUSR in the goddamn Lexus ages and ages and ages ago. What a great car that was. But Charlotte's really developed her driving skill to now really mix it up with the best. Anna Foster's always been a very quick driver. Charlotte's just crept up slowly, and suddenly sticks it on the second row and is putting together quite a decent championship challenge at the moment. She didn't race. Oh, no, she did race at Valencia last time out, but had a bit of a nightmare. A track that doesn't suit most. Bit of a weird one, motorbike tracks and the rest. But a more conventional track like Zolder, she's put in the laps, she's shown her speed. Definitely keep an eye on that blue McLaren on making some moves in the early stages. But we are underway on the formation lap. Final check of the tyres, run through your strategy options, get those brakes up to temperature because you don't want to arrive at turn 1, do a Nathan Carey, pile into half the field and then quit.
Exactly. It's very important over here just to ensure that you're in the mental sort of state to start racing. I think there's been several times for me where I've just spun during the formation lap because I've just not been focusing. So it's a funny story actually. I was in a BMW M2 around Valencia and I spun on the final corner before race start, which was ideal. But it was brilliant to see, and the thing is with these drivers, they're more than capable not to do that and just get their car into the correct window before the race start, just to provide them the best opportunity to make moves to the start. They need as much traction and grip they can get from the tires. So,
yeah, very much so.
We'll
these wet tires do like a little bit more air than the dry tires before. Obviously you have all that cooling water going around the racetrack, so ideal pressures range between 29.5 and 30.5 psi per tire. Little run down on the grid whilst we have the chance. Ben Gilroy on pole. Alongside him is championship challenger James White. They round out the front row of the grid. It's Anna Foster and Charlotte Perkins on row 2, the leading 2 in the alumni category, with Josh Lodge and Marley Watts and all Ferrari third row. Cam Gold alongside the 2 highest placed front engine cars on the grid of Owen Goldsmith, Ed Haskell, Kieran Nellams, Florin Mazalut, Jay Kirkham, Ruben Curtis, Danila Astra Kantsev, Paige Wilcox and Jonan Turner round out the 17-car strong field. We are ready to go here at Zolder. It's a damp, miserable day, but if there's anything that's going to bring the heat, it's some GT3 action from BUSR. Round 3 of the Winter Championship is ready to get underway with Gilroy on the right, White on the left. Watch those lights. And we are underway, and it's a clean start from everyone so far down to turn 1. White tucking in, there's contact already as White gets into the door of Ben Gilroy around turn 1. That's going to allow Anna Foster into that second place. A driver keen to make some moves, look to the inside of turn 2 on Gilroy. They just cut out a shot, but they all get through cleanly by the looks of it. No one off in turn 1. Great start, guys, on keeping that tidy. It's Josh Lodge and Marley Watts further back, 2 wide as we go into turn 3. But look at that, all through sector 1 cleanly. I'm absolutely amazed and very, very pleasantly surprised.
Exactly, and there's some pretty nice battles shaping up. A few cars slightly out of position as we see Sam Knight try to send it, but yeah, just no can do through that chicane. But yeah, very, very clean battles at the moment. And Marley Watts just looking to try and send it around the outside. It's a bit risky, but he makes a move on. Slight bit of contact. Robbing is racing with these sort of cars. We'll see what the stewards think of that. But yeah, Marley Watts getting past Josh Lodge. And yeah, trying to catch up to the likes of Charlotte Perkins. It's going to be tough, though, as we see Josh Lodge try and make a braking maneuver just to try and get edge closer to Marley.
Yeah, absolutely. A little bit of door banging in these wet, slippery conditions is definitely to be expected, and I would expect nothing more than, at very most, a warning for that one on lap 1. Sam Knight looking to be making some moves early on, as he did have a look at Cam Gold into the first chicane, but in a race like this, it's not a sprint race. You have to make your way through nice and cleanly, pick your fights when they arrive. Here's the right moment for Sam Knight down the inside of turn 1. He drives it in hard, gets loose on the exit, and that allows Cam Gold back through it. Some Lambo on Lambo action. I was just about to say discretion's the better part of valor sometimes. Sam Knight disagrees. He's going all out in the early stages.
Exactly, and at the start of these sort of races, it's important to keep your nose clean. But it's equally as important to, get track position, ensure that you've got one up on your rivals. And Sam Knight knows that, and he just wants to get past as soon as he possibly can, as we see James barreling through those curves there in his Ferrari 296, trying to set himself up and get closer and
of Anna Foster, it looks like. Though. Yeah, bundling over those curbs. Tell you what, these drivers are lucky that they are not paying the real damage bills on cars like this. Clattering over curbs like that can bring a hefty price tag. James White, though, after losing that place off the start, carrying a little bit of legacy damage because of it. It won't be slowing him down too much, especially not in the wet. But Anna Foster is in his way. He knows that he has to get on terms of Gilroy, who's already opened up over a second and a half of a lead in just 2 laps. And James White knows this, drives it in a bit too hard to the final corner, and actually loses out time because of it. But Anna Foster is such a hard person to race against. She will give no quarter, drive the rules right to their very limit. It's what makes her such a good defender. And James White, if there was one person James White did not want to be staring at the back of, it would be Anna Foster in front. He's had many times this season staring at the back of that damn McLaren.
Yep, and James White will need to keep his head cool and his mind clear as he, battles Anna Foster at the moment. He needs to keep his mental state in a more sort of regular manner, ensure that, he's not too stressed behind the wheel. And I know from experience that being behind a car for quite a few laps is never a good thing. You always want to be past. So it's important that, he keeps his nose clean and, keeps things under wraps. It's a long
Absolutely
race.
so. Yeah, it really is around a track as punishing as this one. One of the shortest tracks in the game. You're looking at less than 1 minute 30 for a lap in the dry. In the wet qualifying, the best time was in the 1 minute 33. So a little bit slower, obviously, due to the presence of water on the racing surface. But Marley Watts here, having dispatched of Josh Lodge, has gained some time up to the back of Charlotte Perkins. In the back of shot, Cam Gold and Salmonite still going to war. The Lamborghini battle is going to rage on all race, I do suspect, and it's allowing Owen Goldsmith into the mix. He was struggling in practice, but those fears have gone now, and that is Ed Haskell pirouetting the car in the start of the third sector. That's going to be Boulder Bergbocht. Let's see how this happens. He's got Florin Mazalou behind. Up over the crest we go, out of Talammenbocht and down into Boulder Bergbocht as we saw him facing the wrong way as Mazalou was trying to avoid him. And that's some really unfortunate contact. That will be a penalty for Mazalou, unfortunately, for both of them. But mistakes come easily when the track gets slippy. And we were talking about Jernan Turner's progress at the start of the race. He's already dispatched 5 cars and now staring at the back of Jay Kirkham.
Yeah, it's such an unfortunate incident between Florin and Ed at the moment. I think, yeah, it's definitely on Florin, in my opinion. However, the intent was there to try and avoid him. I think he just got it a bit too wrong into the braking zone. But yeah, Jernan Turner making some incredible progress at the moment. He's already, adapted to the car, the track, and the conditions as well. And he's looking to really challenge Kieran Dellums here in his beautiful purple McLaren livery.
Well, it's definitely very distinctive, isn't it? I don't think there's many cars on the grid that will look like this. Stickers plastered all over it. It definitely stands out in a crowd of McLarens. But, well, actually, come to think of that, so does Jernan Turner's. It's such a fantastic livery. We know how hard he works on his ACC liveries, and that black and white monochromatic McLaren just stands out so well in these modern shapes and colours. Who knew a little bit of old school would look so good?
Exactly, and the message behind it is also brilliant. He works so hard on these liveries, and the intentions are pure, and he does a brilliant job in demonstrating that and showcasing, what he can do on track as well. He is a very, very good driver, and the progress he's made since the start of the race shows that. As we see Florin Mazalou with a slightly damaged car on the front at the very least. Not going to be ideal in a wet condition like this.
Yeah, it's old meets new. Down into turn 3 is going to be Lucien Bianchi Bocht. I'm never going to be able to say that right, but it is new that prevails this time. Ruben Curtis sporting the old Porsche 911, the 991 Gen 2R. Looks back down the inside of Klein chicane. Can't quite get it done. That allows Danila Astrakantsev to get onto the back of them. There's Ed Haskell in back of shot, also climbing back towards this group. But yeah, it's an unusual choice, isn't it, from Ruben Curtis picking the old Porsche. He was at Valencia last week, and the old Porsche bites him quite hard there. Very good catch from the rookie to the BUSR. It's an unusual choice, though, to pick the old Porsche when he was at Valencia. He has the new Porsche. Maybe it's just a driving style preference or something. I'm not sure, Pran.
It very much depends. It may be the fact that he doesn't have the new DLC. But if he was at Valencia, then yeah, I mean, it's strange. But yeah, I mean, I very much prefer the old Porsche in comparison to the new one. I still drive the old Porsche at the moment. I just have fun hot lapping it. So it could just be down to driver preference. The 992 GT3 is weird, shall we say, to drive it. It definitely has its moments of understeer mixed with oversteer. For me, I found it understeers on entry, oversteers on exit, which is something I don't particularly like in a car. Neither does anyone, really. It's a very, very difficult car to tame. So
well, it's one of those cars philosophically that shouldn't really work, is it? I mean, Ferdinand Porsche, the great Ferdinand Porsche, decided to go racing in a car with the engine mounted out the back like a Volkswagen Beetle in the original Porsche 912. which had a 4-cylinder engine out the back before the 911 came along with a flat 6, the famous flat 6 we all know now. But it's been honed and developed and developed and developed through the eras. It's won countless races, that kind of formula. And for a car that in paper doesn't really make sense, you have no weight at the front, all the weight at the back, that's not going to work. Well, clearly the Porsche way is to invite in competition. And as we've seen this year in real life in their LMDH project, that they just love the sport, and bringing that legacy with them from their very beginnings to being right to the cutting edge of GT3 racing machinery is just fantastic, isn't it?
Exactly. And the Porsche has demonstrated its pace in a bunch of different tracks. I remember in 1.8 it being incredible in tracks like Laguna Seca and Kyalami. You know, it's always been up there, and the 992 is here to stay. And it really does show that Porsche are sticking to motorsport and developing, you know, what they know best, and that's to make a fast race car. As we see James White just slightly catching on Anna at the moment. It does seem to me that...
Oh, Charlotte! Oh, Charlotte! Oh no, Charlotte! What's going on there? That could be our first retirement of the race, unfortunately, and it is the internet issues again for the ever so unlucky Charlotte Perkins. After such a strong qualifying, she has been forced to return to garage. Strong drive comes to an end far too soon, unfortunately. We hope she can make it back out there and set some good times, but this isn't a 12-hour endurance race, and it is so tightly knit and competitive. You're talking 10 seconds between the first 6 cars even, or first 5 or 6 cars in a wet race. It's going to be very hard for her to make up that time. We hope she can rejoin, but when's Charlotte Perkins going to catch a break, huh?
Exactly. It's heartbreaking to see. You know, she's prepared long and hard for this race. Even, you know, sharing her setup to people. So it's never nice to see when a driver has to retire like that. And it's crushing when it's a disconnect as well. So it's definitely not good, as Ed gets it all wrong into that chicane.
Yeah, he
not
did
ideal.
Just entering the Villeneuve chicane. A little bit too much throttle on the left. Spits you round in the right. And Ed Haskell, unfortunately, is entering a highlight reel of the race, as I'm sure our producer Jason behind the cameras is chuckling at the amount of moments we've had involving Ed Haskell so far. One thing that's happened whilst I've been getting all teary-eyed about Ferdinand Porsche is look at this lead gap. It's kind of just sitting there at 2.35. The fastest car on track right now is our student championship leader, James White. He's all over the back of Anna Foster, who I'm sure is going to put up a fight. But this race could get very interesting if James White can play his cards right. Ben Gilroy has the track position. He has the clear air. There's no cars in front of him in the form of traffic just yet. There may be later on in the race. But as for now, James White has to get past Anna Foster as a matter of urgency. She was a little bit deep into the Jackie X box that time round. Starting lap 9 we go, and every lap that the UE driver sits behind Anna Foster, he's going to be seeing Gilroy just slip further and further and further away, knowing he has the pace to be there with him.
Exactly, and the thing is with James and Anna and their battle at the moment, you might be thinking that they're different classes, so you know, why not let James go? However, there's the BUSR Cup, which factors in both classes, so there's definitely some bragging rights there that Anna wants to keep. So yeah, it's going to be a sort of case of attrition, really. James is just going to have to keep on the back and force an error out of Anna so that he can use his space properly. So
as we see the Rev Sport duo go into the first chicane, Josh Lodge scampers over the escape road. Cam Gold completely misses the second part of the chicane, but gains 2 places for his troubles. It was Josh Lodge and Marley Watts tangling on the exit of turn 3. Cam Gold, ever the opportunist, spots the gap and launches it through one that we couldn't even see. We see it happen here on the exit of turn 3, and Cam Gold on the outside gets a little bit of a bump, so the stewards may not want to look much more into that, but either way, Cam Gold finds two places in the space of one corner, and that's Anna Foster and James White, both of them off the track. Well, Anna Foster was in the gravel trap, James White was in the pits, and I wonder, have those two tangled on pit entry maybe? If James White wants to go for the undercut, looks actually like Anna Foster let him go. What on earth's going to happen here down into the final chicane? Jackie Ixbocht, one of the slowest corners on the track. It's James White pitting, and James White being Anna's reference, Anna's sailed straight past the corner. That's what's happened there, unfortunately for her. So actually, a very kind gesture has turned into quite a costly mistake there, isn't it?
Exactly. It's not ideal for Anna at the moment, having to spin like that, but she'll make up the time. She's a brilliant driver, so we hope to see that time being made up again as James going for the extreme undercut of the century. That is going to be extremely... It's intriguing to see what his tyres will be like at the end of this race, because they'll have about an hour with his current tyre set. I think the main thing that he's looking for is that crucial clean air, so that he can just set constantly good laps all of the time.
Well, here's my thought. If you look at the timing tower now, Pran, there isn't a mandatory stop in this race. Because James White pitted under the impression that there was one. It cost him loads of time. I'm sure the Ferrari can make an hour 15 on fuel. It's one of the most fuel-efficient cars in the game. Probably the best on fuel, that little tiny V6 just sipping fuel around the lap. Surely he hasn't made a bit of a mistake there.
It's weird because in the wet, like, these drivers are going to be sliding a little bit more. They're going to be eating up their tyres a bit. So pitting for tyres is most likely the logical thing to do, because at the end of the race, you'll find that the grip will, decrease to such a point where you can't keep the car on the road, and you want as predictable of a car as you can possibly get, especially in conditions like this.
Yeah, you're very much correct, and I was about to be singing Sam Knight's praises as he'd managed to get up into P4, actually. So that's Danila Astrakantsev in the gravel on the exit of the final corner. James White's coming up behind him, the only driver to have taken a stop so far. See how this happened, but Sam Knight having got up to that fantastic fourth. Marley Watts and Josh Lodge, they are inseparable, those two, snuck back through in the first sector of that lap. Now let's watch this. So Danila into the last corner, brakes on the grass, locks the rears and arrives at the corner backwards. So that's suboptimal for Danila, but we were talking about it at the start of the stream. These small mistakes, they really do punish you when the track and indeed the grass is very, very wet.
Exactly. It's very, very uncompromising. And mistakes are going to be punished extremely hard. So it is incredibly tough for these drivers at this current point in time. And especially in the first sort of 15, 20 minutes. It's, it's going to be tough.
Yeah, definitely very much seems so. We have a bit of a train here appearing. Cam Gold down to Owen Goldsmith are all in a line. This is the podium battle to see, and it involves two Lamborghinis, two Ferraris, and a BMW. Not a McLaren in sight, as whilst I've just noticed that Kieran Nellums also has a 10-second penalty, unfortunately. Not quite sure what that's for. Probably something in the early stages of the race. Yeah, causing a collision. Kieran Nellums that'll be back on the 152 of Florin Mazalu on lap 3. So that's 10 seconds extra Kieran will have to serve in his pit stop, but he'll progress still, and with a small gap in front to Jay Kirkham, he has a little bit of free air to work with to get up to the back of them.
Exactly. I think Kieran will just need to get his head down and just stay consistent. People always talk about pace, but consistency on track is key as well, because in these sort of longer form races, it's always important that even if you're not the quickest on raw pace, you've got a decent, consistent rhythm throughout the race. And for these sort of newer drivers in the field, it's something that they'll definitely have to take into consideration.
Yeah, it really is. It'll probably be one of the first league races in the wet that some of these drivers have done, looking at Ruben Curtis, Kieran Nellums, Jay Kirkham, and maybe Ben Gilroy, although with a driver of his speed, I suspect he's done something else in the past. It's a very different ball game to racing in the dry. Suddenly you have to manage the tyres a lot more, manage the slip angle you have on these wet tyres, the grooved wet tyres, much like you'd find on your road car, made for displacing water, unlike the slick tyres purely made for maximum speed and grip on a dry racing surface. Cam Gold doing a bit of a jig in front of Marley Watts up to the first chicane. A little bit of a defensive move, but no way through there for Marley Watts. Josh Lodge now still inseparable from Marley Watts. It's almost like they are one car. They're kind of going around in a pair together, crashing together, overtaking together, hopefully overtaking Cam Gold together, I'm sure, for Marley and Josh. But that's got some pride to it, hasn't it, to be the lead Ferrari in this race? They're definitely going to want to come home the first in their brand. Yeah,
exactly. But they don't need to pressure themselves into getting past Cam, because I'm just seeing now that Cam Gold has just gotten a 5-second time penalty. And in the little moment between Josh and Marley, we saw that Cameron slightly skipped that first chicane. So yeah, that'll definitely cost Cam's efforts at the moment. And yeah, they'll just need to, the two Ferraris behind Cam will just need to ensure that they don't lose too much time. Maybe they'll need to do an undercut strategy.
Talking of not losing too much time, they've decided to battle amongst themselves and give Cam Gold a little bit of a breather, as that 5-second penalty in this group is oh so painful. Drops him back behind Goldsmith in 7th, and Josh Lodge does get up the inside of Marley Watts. Brings it on the curb, leaves his fellow competitor space on the down to second chicane. Sam Knight's going to try and get both of them. Clobbers over the curbs. They're too wide through the chicane, and somehow they all come out facing the right direction. I never thought that I would have been saying that so far this race into the Villeneuve chicane. Still super clean, hard racing between the all three of them. It's great to watch as the Italian marks go to war.
Sam Knight with the extremely opportunistic move on Josh Lodge as well, just sending it onto the inside and allowing that racing room with Josh Lodge making his way past in the hard braking zone. But yeah, I mean, Sam Knight showing that he can be racy as well. Very, very good to see from the Lambo driver.
Yeah, he's a driver who last time out in Valencia struggled a little bit with the configuration of the track, but a little bit of rain and sometimes some rain masters come to the fore. Sam battling, out qualifying his fellow Lamborghini Cam Gold was not something I was particularly expecting from Sam. Of course, he's been around in BUSR for a couple of seasons now, but he's had a great showing tonight and is looking and prying at a class podium, which I'm sure he'd be absolutely delighted with.
Exactly. It's always good to have to get a podium in a race such as this. I have yet to experience getting a podium. However, it will come soon, and I know I'll be extremely happy when I do.
Have faith.
So it's going to be brilliant to see.
It's on its way.
Oh, I hope so. I mean, Paul Ricard's looking interesting for me. I mean, I've got decent pace around there if I can keep it on track and if I don't make rear-to-rear contact into turn 1. But, you know.
Yeah, we joke. So, yeah, of course, we do have Paul Ricard coming up later this season. So this being round 3 of Zolder. Next up, we return to the States. It's been a little while since we've raced at Laguna Seca. And being one of the tracks, again, one of the shortest tracks in the game, and definitely one of the tracks that drivers have the least mileage on, we're probably sure for an upset there. Another very challenging, difficult, twisty, narrow circuit that has oh so much history. Followed by a little trip to Texas, in fact. Oh no, not Texas. That's not America. That's Italy. That's Misano. Whoops. I saw runoff and assumed Cota. They're not the same.
You can be forgiven.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Fortunately, we haven't got to factor in travel costs from America to Italy. Well, from Belgium to America to Italy in the space of 2 weeks. So that's why this is all possible, thanks to the world of sim racing. But we have Laguna Seca and then Misano, or the track limit county of Assetto Corsa Competizione. I am not biased and hate that place in any way, shape or form. Followed by...
me neither.
Definitely. And Misano being our second sprint round of the season as well. Followed by a trip to Japan. The lovely Suzuka will play host to round 6 championship with your beloved Paul Ricard and Barcelona rounding out the season. As I'm sure, looking at James White's lap times, come that Barcelona race, there will very much be a student championship battle on the line, and I really cannot wait to see who comes out the top of it. Owen Goldsmith is creeping up to the back of this group now in the BMW, having established himself in that 7th place, having a very good showing in one of the less picked cars.
Exactly, Owen doing a fantastic job, as we see James White getting a 5-second time penalty from the stewards following an incident with car number 21. No, that is car number 734, which is Anna. So
yeah, that's Anna Foster.
Clearly have... Yeah, that's extremely damaging for James's recovery push to try and get further up the grid, and especially when you're trying to fight people like Ben Gilroy, it's never good to have a time penalty like that, and it's going to be extremely costly. And I think it's in reference to that turn 7 collision that I think we saw, where James just got it a little bit wrong into the braking. So yeah, that's not good for James, and I'm gutted for him, quite frankly, at the moment. It's not what you want to see.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right there, Cran. James White needed all of the help he could get in this race, and mistake off the start into the side of Ben Gilroy unfortunately put him behind the leading alumni driver of Anna Foster. And, well, unfortunately for him now, a 5-second penalty is going to continue to hurt his race, and maybe even put him a couple of places back come the finish. Important to note that along with Charlotte Perkins, we have also lost Jonan Turner, unfortunately, after starting from the very back of the grid. He has retired from the race, as has it's a game of try and guess the car that's disappeared. Who else have we lost? Yeah, we've lost Peyton, of course, as another, and those are the 3 drivers we've lost so far. All 3 of them being McLaren. So the McLaren herd has thinned, but don't worry, there's still 4 to go. And they are both leading their respective classes. So I'm sure that the McLaren brand ambassadors on this will still be very happy with the results of their cars.
Oh, yes. It'll be brilliant for McLaren customer racing to see their cars doing so well in BUSR. It's always good to see. But, you know, Cameron Gold, we have to mention him at the moment. P2 in the alumni class at the moment, really, you know, pushing to get those top positions, and he's got some competition. Going to properly challenge, and Josh Lodge, who is extremely fast as well. So it's something that, you know, we appreciate with BUSR, where we have such high quality people on the grid at the moment, as we see Josh filing into the pits, sending it into the pits, quite frankly. He needs to make sure he doesn't speed in, though.
Yeah, looks like that was okay to me. Down to 50 kilometers an hour. 50 clicks is the pit lane speed limit, and that releases Sam Knight to continue chasing after Marley Watts. He'll be looking to get on terms with the 2 cars in front who he was battling with earlier. So he'll be very much looking forward to using that clear air. And I've just seen that due to some few technical issues with the stream audio malarkey and stuff, we're going to be having a very short break. Please do not get anywhere. We'll be back in a few seconds for the rest of the race. But yeah, until then, we'll see you in just a second. Can you share your screen? And we have returned after our brief technical issue. We are back as we see the rest of the alumni class peeling down pit lane. Marley Watts and Sam Knight both diving in. So looks like pretty much all of the alumni drivers are pitting at the moment. The only two to carry on, Cam Gold and Anna Foster, both pretty happy with their track position right now. They both have, of course, clear air. It usually comes around when you're first and second in your class.
Exactly, and it's always good to extend your first stop as well, because it means you have fresher tyres towards the end of the race. It doesn't matter a huge amount when it's an hour and 15 minutes. However, when you're pushing to the absolute limit for all 1 hour and 15 minutes, it's definitely going to be crucial when you need that extra bit of grip towards the end of the race.
It really is. It's one of those races where, of course, there's a minimum of a 25-second pit hold, but tyres are not mandatory. Of course, a tyre change in this platform takes bang on 30 seconds to do. The pit crew are very efficient and very consistent with their times. Of course, those being not real human people, kind of like pretend virtual people, but they're very good at what they do. We won't insult them, but it's another interesting strategy dynamic, how in this wet weather condition, do you really feel the need to take a new set of tyres for what is effectively half a stint, whereas an hour 15 is only 10 minutes longer than the top tier GT racing categories around the world of a 65-minute stint timer. I strongly suspect that a lot of these drivers will be thinking that they can cut 5 seconds down on their stop and do the whole race on one set of tyres.
Yep. I think it's very much a case of how confident people are that they're going to be, keeping that pace up throughout the race on that one set of tyres. I always feel like it's a case of diminishing returns, so I tend to take tyres anyway, just because it gives me that peace of mind that I have fresh tyres when I get out on track again. I just want that, safety net in my brain. But some drivers feel confident enough that they can push and save that 5 seconds, which could prove crucial, in fact, to progressing. Because as we see with drivers like James White, if he gets within sort of 5 seconds of Ben Gilroy, or maybe even 10 at this point, if he saves that 5 seconds worth, he could potentially pip him, as we see a nice onboard perspective from Ed. It's always nice to see that rumbling engine of that Mercedes. It's a brilliant sounding car in the game. With Florence another one perspective as well.
Yeah. And here's another fantastic sounding car. Florin Mazalou currently trying to fight off Josh Lodge. That'll be, I think that Florin hasn't served his stop, and just like that, through goes Josh Lodge, the Durham driver, leaving plenty of space now on the exit at turn 3, I've noticed, since his small moment with Marley Watts earlier. So Josh Lodge will advance that place into P10 at the end of the first sector. But it's all waiting now. It's these few laps where you're not quite sure where everyone is, because we don't know who's made their stop, who hasn't. We can try and take an estimated guess and say that because Anna and Owen are in the pits right now, that they haven't yet taken their stop. Aren't we smart? But here's one issue that I'm sure James White wouldn't have foreseen. It's Ed Haskell. Ed, having not served his stop yet and having spun twice, he does not need to get out of the way of James White. They're both students, but this is hurting James White so very much, isn't it? In his pursuit of not only Anna Foster, but Ben Gilroy as well, leading the race. He needs to dispatch his Mercedes as quickly as possible, but as you can see down that front straight, the AMG has oh so much power.
Exactly, and with the Ferrari sort of lacking that acceleration in comparison to that roaring front that the Mercedes has, it's always going to be tough. So James White will really have to make up the time through corners. But it's going to be tough either way. And there's always a bit of uncertainty, as you said, with, you know, drivers pitting or not pitting. I felt that, you know, it's extremely difficult to judge if you're going to be in front or behind, and if you're in front or behind, how much is the gap. So it's always going to be tough, and it's difficult mid-race to have that strategic mind while you're also focusing on keeping the car on track in such treacherous conditions as this.
Yeah, it really, really is. And one thing that we missed whilst we were enjoying the fantastic sounds of the AMG and the Porsche is that having both served their stop, James White is 2.6 seconds in front of Anna Foster, but that gap is massively decreasing with every passing corner, every passing lap, because James White still cannot find a way past Ed Haskell. These are crucial laps that James White is losing here. He's still stuck behind the shed. Been so far up the road. So now the battle goes to James White pulling out that 5-second gap on Anna Foster, and Ed, rightly so, is just driving his line. It's up to James White to get past, and clearly he's not able to right now.
And Ed Haskell, let's not forget, is putting up such a brilliant defense on James White at the moment, placing his car exactly where he needs to place it and keeping that car in a position which James White just cannot find a window pass. He's using his car's strengths and he's doing a brilliant job with it. So a very, very unsung hero in this battle at the moment is Ed in his incredible Shed of Fire Racing Mercedes livery.
Well, just look at the difference he's made from a 3-second gap to a half-a-second gap. Anna Foster is now all over the back of Ed Haskell as the Lamborghinis go bouncing over the chicane in quite a joyful manner. But one thing I've noticed on the mini-map, which is very, very interesting indeed, Ed Haskell, James White and Anna Foster have Ben Gilroy behind them to lap them, which is not something Ben Gilroy would have thought of. He's lapping P6, 5 and 4. And I see on the mini-map, James White is off the road and out of the race. The Student Championship leader retires on lap 24 and falls by the wayside. The frustration, the pressure of having to try and find a way past Ed Haskell with Anna Foster closing all the time, proving to be too much for the UE driver. An incredibly frustrating few laps for him, I am sure. And that is such bitter luck for the number 21, James White, out of the race. And that leaves Ben Gilroy almost a lap ahead of the driver who was challenging him in the early stages, Anna Foster, and in fact, looking to lap Anna Foster now. So we know he still has to serve his stop, but oh my goodness me, this lead is pretty unprecedented.
And I'm heartbroken for James at the moment. I mean, he's definitely shown his pace, but unfortunately this race he just could not use it. And being stuck behind two different cars is never, ever, ever a good thing. So yeah, bit of bitter disappointment as we see Cam sending it into the chicane, and yeah, just went all wrong for him. And Sam Knight was able to just breeze past through there.
Yeah, just slipped and slid through the exit of the two chicanes to Sam Knight, but he skips his way up into P6 overall and P4 in the alumni class. He's not far off a class podium here, 7 seconds off of Josh Lodge and Marley Watts, both of whom are still inseparable after all this time. But here's a stat for you. I can't believe I'm saying this in the BUSR race, but Ben Gilroy has lapped the entire field. Every single one. He's the only driver not to have made his stop apart from Ed Haskell, but he leads everyone by 1 whole lap. We have never seen that before in the BUSR.
And it just goes to show how well Ben has been performing this race. Genuinely impressed with how he's managed to burst onto our BUSR platform and just do such a brilliant job. And it's been mistake-free all race, which is something that is extremely, extremely valuable when it comes to a championship effort such as this. And in fact, I'm very, very happy for Ben at the moment. He's found another gear, and yeah, it's just a brilliant thing to see. With Cameron sending it once again, these two are having an insane battle at the moment, aren't they?
Yeah, there's no love lost between 2 Lamborghinis. Likewise what we saw with Marley Watts and Josh Lodge a little bit earlier. They are just inseparable. And just as Sam Knight passed Cam Gold the lap before, this time around Cam Gold returns the favour. 35 minutes left on the clock, and it is Ben Gilroy dominantly leading the way by over a lap. Yes, you did hear that correctly, from Anna Foster, and Ed Haskell still to stop in P3. Marley Watts and Josh Lodge, the dynamic duo that have been nose to tail the entire race, are P4 and 5. And there we see Ed Haskell into pit lane. So he's been definitely a very important factor in this race. Of course, keeping James White behind, absolutely justified, but it's played a massive part whichever way you cut it, and that's allowed Ben Gilroy to get such a massive gap, and indeed Anna Foster to close in on James White before that unfortunate retirement. But now only 1 car is left to stop. It is your race leader. It will drop him on the same lap as everyone else at least, but yeah, it's just fantastic to see how well tuned into the circuit he is. He's always been at the front of this field. A win and a 2nd place last time out in Valencia overall. 2 student wins in Valencia, of course. But just going from strength to strength here. But Anna Foster, by all means, is hanging on to his coattails, isn't she? She's not letting him out of his sight.
Definitely keeping Ben very, very honest throughout the race. I think the key thing for Ben at the moment is he's keeping it very, very consistent. You can see in his lap times, I mean, genuinely very, very good. And at this moment in time, I think it's just important for Ben just to keep doing what he's doing, because with the pit stop time, I reckon he's going to be about 20 seconds in front of Anna. So he's got all of that breathing room that he wants just to have that mental stability throughout the race, and that's something that's very, very key when you're vying for the win.
Yeah, absolutely. It's one of those things where points mean prizes, but also race wins feel fantastic. And Ben Gilroy now does finally jump down pit lane. He has survived 42 minutes on that fuel tank, and will take a small splash and dash and be on his way. In fact, he's just pulled up in his pit bay now, my apologies. So just got to his pit bay and will be back on track shortly. So Anna Foster, Marley Watts, Josh Lodge and Cam Gold will all be returned to the lead lap. But for a very brief time, that was the first time ever in BUSR history. Yep, the first time ever in the 4 years this organisation that a car was led by a whole lap. And I don't think we'll see that again for a very long time. But yeah, don't let that detract from a superb drive.
Exactly, and records are being broken even after this much time of BUSR existing, and it just shows the longevity and the amount of people still turning up and still taking up sim racing and competing at levels such as this. And it's always good to see sim racing as an industry do so well even after that boom in COVID and then the decline sort of after. I think it's very, very important that brands, develop sim racing, and it's good to see that the very few sim racing brands that are, fully pushing with the marketing are bringing people in. It's always a very, very welcome sight to me as, a person who really, really does want the esports industry, as well as the general sim racing industry as a whole, to be highly successful.
Yeah, it really is. Sim racing's been one of those ever-present forms of gaming. You look back to the early Gran Turismo games and the Need for Speed franchise, and they've always been ever-present in our lives. I'm sure if you're watching this, you must have heard of them at least. And if you haven't, how did you find us? But yeah, sim racing continues to attract a fantastic crowd of genuinely interested, very talented people. Some great drivers, designers, commentators, broadcasters, that they've all been able to hone their craft through sim racing, and that's why the platform keep developing them with the release of Assetto Corsa 2 broadcast for, is it early next year or is it early 2025? Can you remember, Prano? Can't get it right off the top of my head.
Oh.
Yeah, sorry to make you think. I may have to go and do a Google search at some point.
Yeah, my mind's just blank now that you've asked me. Gosh, I should know this. It's just me and you being silly, I guess.
Corsa 2.
But
release date is the first suggested search for the second quarter of 2024. So I wasn't right with either of them. It's going to be around the May-June time next year. Oh, that's Ruben Curtis facing the wrong way on the exit at turn 2. A very strong race Ruben was having, but after that mistake, he drops down behind Ed Haskell and indeed Kieran Nellums, who will advance into the top 10 overall and into 5th place, respectively, in the student class. It's a good showing from Kieran. We haven't seen him so far. Much this season, but he's doing a superb job now in really getting his teeth stuck into this racetrack. Same can be said for Jay Kirkham and the even more unlucky Ruben Curtis, having had a spin. He's now got a drive-through for his troubles. And I wonder if that's for track limits or a collision.
Yeah,
looks like that is. Yeah, that is indeed track limits, and Ed Haskell actually picked up a 15-second time penalty for a collision with car 23. Who's car number 23? I need to find out who car number 23 is.
That will be James White, I think, who's just left the session. So yeah.
Yeah, car 21 is James White, but there is no car 23. So I can assume that it must be car 21.
Yeah, it is car 21. I can't read.
There you go, yeah.
Brilliant job from me. Don't blame me, I have glasses.
Well, we'll wait and see if that is 21 or 23, because if it is a car number 23, then who are you?
It is car number 21. I'm just silly.
well, I was reading it too, and it said car 23. It still does say car 23. So in the steward's notes on the document, Pran, it says, however, car 23 is sufficiently long. Words. It hurts my brain.
Yeah. A bit of typography errors from the stewards.
It's pain.
Yeah, blanked our minds. But either way, we're looking to see a very, very consistent Danila Ashrakantsev, who's really, stuck in there. He's not the fastest driver on the platform by any means. However, he's definitely one that won't give up, and he always takes a challenge. And it's what we like in the BUSR, when we see people just pushing their limits and, testing how much they can push themselves. And it's very good to see from Danila Ashrakantsev, who's been an experienced ACC racer for us and has done an incredible job keeping with us and performing as well at times.
Yeah, Danila's a fantastic part of the BUSR team. So much work behind the scenes, he is the broadcast manager, in fact, of BUSR. So he's a busy man. He has his work cut out with us a lot, and he has to put up with us most of the time with our moaning and whinging, being sim racers. We love a whinge. But yeah, Danila Ashrakantsev loves his rallying. So I was thinking that the rain would suit him a little bit more. But ACC is a platform that he always wants to go and drive, even if he doesn't really spend a huge amount of time on it. He enjoys the competition just like the rest of us.
Exactly, and working with Denny has always been brilliant. So he definitely brings the best to his plate with the broadcast, and he works so hard to deliver things like the highlights reels that you see. So yeah, it is always good to see people sticking with us and doing such an amazing job.
Yes, really is. And these two, social distancing, guys. I know it's 3 years on, but come on now. They've been within a second pretty much the whole race. They've been inseparable. Josh Lodge and Marley Watts, the leading two Ferraris. And they're so close together. It's been we haven't seen one piece of, well, we've seen one, and it was deemed a racing incident. But these two are gonna be absolutely sweating buckets to the end of this, because there's just no time to be found. They're both on their limit, and their limit's the exact same speed. So how do you get past someone who is exactly the same as you are? You're both in the same car. You're both probably on very similar setups, driving it in a very similar way. The only difference between the two of them is the number, the name, and the livery, as far as I'm concerned.
I think the key thing is for Marley to, if he can't, kick it up a notch and gain more speed, it's to elicit an error out of Josh. It's to, phase him in the middle of battles. It's to, just have a look on the inside, get into Josh's head, or, flash your lights, just anything that you could do just to create, if you can't get an advantage, at least on track, then, mentally speaking, you'd want that advantage. However, knowing Marley and knowing Josh, they'll be having a giggle in the voice call. They're both in there, unmuted, so they're probably having a nice sort of chat mid-race, having a blast, as everyone does in BUSR.
Yeah, Josh Lodge, let's not forget, a race winner, an overall race winner in BUSR a couple seasons ago, back when the likes of Joe Scher were rocking the scene. So Josh Lodge does know how to keep a lead and how to keep his head under pressure. Marley Watts has a challenge on his hands to try and get past for an overall podium, let's not forget. So this has some real gravity to it. But yeah, by all means, Josh Lodge and Marley Watts, both very competent operators of a car and steering wheel. Marley actually the only driver in this grid to be running on a VR headset, which I'm surprised that we don't see more virtual reality users in a set of course competency only. With this game's fantastic graphics and the dynamic weather, the incredible car models as well, must be said, I'm really, really surprised that virtual reality isn't something we see more of.
It does require a very, very well-spec'd computer. I will say that, because yeah, it's very, very graphically and CPU intensive. So you need a system that will work seamlessly. In the esports scene, I had a driver who used VR at about 90 FPS. But as soon as he switched to an ultra-wide monitor, you're going from like 90 FPS to around about 200 frames. And that performance game is critical to, keeping that reaction time going. VR is not for everyone as well. It for some people, I know with a couple of my friends that have tried VR headsets, it made them quite motion sick. Because with sim racing, you're not moving around with the car, so you're in one fixed position, but you're in a VR set, you suddenly see the whole world, like a whole different world in front of you, and it's always just very disorientating when you first get into it. But it's always fun if VR racing is something that you want to get into. I've never personally done it, but I can imagine how it feels.
Yeah, I've always wanted to give it a go. Virtual reality. I think I've got a computer good enough to handle it. I think. But it's always Yeah, I hope so. Custom build, woo me. I've always been looking to dip my toes in the water of virtual reality. It's just a bit of a minefield when you get there, though. There's all kinds of configuration settings and so on and so forth. But the only thing I can say to Marley Watts is I salute your computer.
Exactly, and you know, Marley doesn't only use VR on ACC, he uses it on iRacing and during our iRacing championship as well. And it's something that is superb to see, really, where you know you can use one configuration for the vast majority, basically. And it is going to be good because next round in the BUSR iRacing Championship is the FF 1600s around Tsukuba, the 2000 short layout, which takes us to a very, very iconic Japanese track with a car that is extremely fun to drive. I mean, I've driven this myself, and it is a different beast to drive. So very much looking forward to round 3 of the BUSR iRacing Championship sponsored by RevSport. So that'll be on the 2nd of November as well. So only 3 days to go. So
yeah,
looking forward to seeing how that progresses.
Come to think of it, this is spooky week. We should have come in costume. I'm disappointed. I think it was this time last year, actually. I ended up commentating at Circuit of the Americas with my flatmate, Ishan. And he wore a suit jacket, a bow tie, but no shirt. And
that is
I'm thinking what you're thinking, by the way. I think the stream replay is still out there somewhere. Please, for the love of God, don't go and find it, because spooky.
Oh, I will go out of my way tonight to find it. Believe you me.
Oh no, I've created a monster. I need to go and let him know. But yeah, we should have come in costume. It's spooky week. It's everyone's going to be out for Halloween tomorrow, or at least some of them. I know I am. And so is actually James White, although he's not in this race anymore. So some of us are feeling spooky and in the need for a bit of a night out. But you know, it's not. I was going to say it's not for everyone. It's actually not for me. It's not even something I like doing. But I'm just going as a bit of an occasion.
Yeah. I mean, I'm wearing a Mercedes sweatshirt, so depending on what side of the coin you are in terms of Red Bull or Mercedes and F1, you know, it could be spooky to you. So if you don't like Mercedes, boo. That's all I'm going to say.
What's that? Owen Goldsmith is out of his chair, out of his room, and running to your location?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to have to
an absolute diehard Red Bull
my room now.
Yeah,
I'm gonna have to barricade my room. I'm gonna have to barricade my house for any angry Red Bull
PC,
supporters.
your desk, your rig, block it all. Even like put your bed up vertically and have that in the doorway. That'll stop him. I hope. Either that or he's some kind of superhero, in which case, there's no helping you.
I mean, if he's as strong as he is on track, then I'm screwed either way. So, yeah, it's not looking good for me, shall we say that?
And someone who is also not looking good for is Ed Haskell, having become a bit of what's the word? A rascal. That's the word. We're going for a rascal. Having been a bit of a rascal earlier on in the race, keeping, Haskell the rascal. There we go. I like that. Having been
I'll stick it in it.
Yes. Yeah, having I you know what? I hope it will. But of course, he got that penalty for the collision with James White earlier. James White is now out of the race. Unfortunately, we didn't see what happened there. I have asked for an explanation to let you guys know watching the stream, but his race has gone a bit from a bit bad to a bit worse with a drive-through penalty for track limits.
Yeah, and it's very easy to do, especially in wet conditions. You know, you get it all wrong on the braking, suddenly you've overshot the corner and you're carrying a way more speed than you would want to. And it's never ideal. And Ed, unfortunately, having to pay the price for it. As we see Marley making his way through with Anna Foster behind him, is it? Is it Anna Foster? No, it could be Kieran. So
yeah, that looks to be Kieran Nellums, 1 lap down on Marley, but that gap between Marley Watts and Josh Lodge has stayed, well, nearly within DRS range. I know GT3 cars don't have DRS, but it's a good unit of reference for this. The whole race.
Solid as Mount Everest, that gap.
Absolutely. An hour has passed. These two have been swapping positions from the word go till now. And I guarantee you there'll be something else that happens before the end of this race. Because with only 1.5 seconds separating them, that's 1 missed braking zone, 1 bad hit on a curb. And these are Ferraris. These aren't curb-munching cars. These aren't your Mercedes or your... I'm trying to think of the cars good on curbs. Bentleys. Bentleys are good on curbs. 1 small tap the wrong way, the wrong angle, will spit you off into the scenery. And just like that, you've lost all of the time you've worked so hard to get.
Yeah, it's... I mean, I main the 296, and I often whinge about how terrible its curb clearance is. So, if I was racing, and if I was in the voice call, I think the other drivers would hate me from how much I complain about that car. And it's not much better with my new baby, the Honda NSX GT3 Evo.
Wow, you've only joined it around a year and a half too late. Of course, back remembering the times where the Honda was stupid, broken, and incredibly quick. Unfortunately, Pran, you're a bit late on that hype train. The car's no longer ridiculously fast. But it is still, I mean, it's a great looking car. It's a great sounding car. And obviously, everyone's.
I'm enjoying the VTEC.
Very true, yeah. Get it to 14,000 RPM and then downshift.
Oh, yes. And the lack of power once you rev it up. Great. And the lack of traction in low speed.
But it makes a good noise doing it.
And the traction override. Awesome sound. And very, very realistic to what the real life version is, actually. I mean, I did some cross-referencing because I am a very, very big audiophile when it comes to cars in the sim as opposed to real life. But then it doesn't make sense because the Ferrari 296 GT3 sounds nothing like the real life counterpart. But I enjoy driving it and I enjoy the sound, which mixed signals really from my brain, but you know.
Yeah, well, it's of course the newest outright car in this game in terms of actual chassis development. The 720S Evo being a tweaked up normal 720S, I guess. This is an all brand new platform, fresh on the scene. Had a very, very strong season in real life this season. G2 World Challenge, IMSA, ALMS, and Michelin Le Mans Cup. Wait, no, ALMS
won
is
the 24 hours of Nürburgring.
Yes, that's right. Of course it did. Yeah, of course it did. With David Pittard behind the wheel, good friend of mine. Which is fantastic.
Behind the wheel as well.
Yeah, great to see Fricadelli finally get a win in NLS, which they've deserved for so long. And as soon as they move away from Porsche, their bad luck curse is broken, and Ferrari actually wins the N24 for the first time in as long as I can remember, really. It was great to see, it really was.
And a great tribute as well to its owner, Sabine Schmitz, who sadly passed away a couple of years back. Of course. You know, yeah, the team, you know, carries that Sabine flag all the time whenever they race. So very, very good to see Fricadelli Racing getting that success, and the Ferrari, which, you know, it's always been there or thereabouts in the 24 hours of Nürburgring, but you know, it's always good to see that car performing well. And I like when it's quick on ACC as well, because it gives me an excuse to push. When a car is slow, I am demotivated and I don't want to perform. When it does fly though, I love it.
Yeah, you have standards when you're in a good car. It's a bit like taking the McLaren to Spa and being like a second and a half off. Even if you're anyone, if you know you're a second and a half off in the car that's the best around that track, you're like, why am I second and a half off? Why am I? I need to sort this out. Whereas if you go to Spa in a Bentley to be a second and a half off a McLaren 720S Evo, oh, Marley, that's a wow pogo stick moment through there. But if you take a Bentley to Spa and are a second and a half off, by rights, that's a bloody good effort. You've done great. Brilliant. Well done.
Oh, yes.
Go and have a pint down the pub or something. That's the kind of difference in parity with that kind of thing, is that you just don't. You have standards with your car, but the most important thing is that, of course, you do enjoy it.
Yeah, exactly, and it's always very, very good when you see brand diversity in cars. Unfortunately, we don't have a Bentley in this year's iteration of the BUSR. However, you know, we could be seeing it very, very soon, and you know, it's always going to be nice to have a few more cars. I mean, I know for the spring season, I'm probably going to make the switch to the Honda NSX GT3 Evo. You know, it served our drivers well, with Joe Share getting many a win with his trusty purple Honda. And I trust that he'll do the same with me. I mean, I've been matching my PBs with a Ferrari, with the VTEC Beast, that is a Honda. So I hope that, you know, I can have fun along the way in the Spring League. That will be coming up very, very soon after the Winter League.
It creeps up on you. You finish winter, you enjoy your Christmas, and you get back to uni and think, wow, it's now time for spring. Whilst we look at these two going around, these two, of course, veterans of BUSR racing, Marley Watts being around since probably the very beginning, one of the longest standing members in this community. I have a question for you, Pran, whilst you watch this battle go on, as these two continue to just stay completely nose to tail, as they have been the whole race. We have to make a decision, and that decision is, who do we fancy talking to after this race?
Ooh, I mean, we have to talk to Ben, because we need to see what goes through his mind on track. And I do feel like we need to talk to Anna as well, because she's looking very, very clear on getting that alumni win.
Anna's pretty much stormed off to
these lot.
Yeah, Anna's been pretty comfortable at the front of alumni. 10-second gap over Josh Lodge at the moment, with Marley Watts closer behind now, only 0.7 of a second, as Danilo has a little loop in the Villeneuve chicane. Here is Anna Foster, as if on cue. Thank you, Jason. Cruising her way around. She's had a pretty quiet race since the demise of James White, and has been able to just cruise around, not under any real pressure, and just consolidate this victory. So Ben Gilroy and Anna Foster are the first two. They look set to be our two. I'm feeling a Josh Lodge. I'm feeling a Josh Lodge interview, top 3 overall, I think. Josh had a very interesting race after not qualifying quite as far towards the front as he would have wanted to be. I think that'll be interesting, or at least I think Marley got an interview last week, so let's not saturate that. Marley's voice is going to be tired out probably if he gets interviewed too much. So let's go for Josh Lodge wherever he finishes.
Exactly. I mean, it's going to be good to get the top 3's point of view. They've had very, very different races, so it'll be interesting to get some different perspectives on what has been a very, very eventful race, and one that has been extremely fun to commentate on as well, with my first race being behind the commentary booth for the ACC race.
Wow, is it really your first time for ACC?
Yep.
There we go.
I had to break that.
I'm proud.
I had to break that.
It's like a proud dad moment.
At some point. I mean, I'm very, very happy that I've been able to commentate on the sim platform that I know best. I did iRacing last round, and it was very, very cool. But, you know, ACC has a special place in my heart. So it's always good to be here.
Yeah, you and me both. So with 7 minutes on the clock, here is what the leaderboard does look like. Durham's Ben Gilroy leads the way by what's looking like almost half a lap. He's absolutely stormed off up the road in one of the most dominant drives in recent times in BUSR. Anna Foster is our leading alumni driver right now. The ex-NTU student, Nottingham Trent Uni, of course, runs second place in front of another Durham goer, this time alumni, so Durham ex-goer, being Josh Lodge, who is now under considerably more pressure from Marley Watts, who's also from up north, but not Durham. I don't actually know what university he went to, but Newcastle. I know it's up north. Newcastle, there we go. That's close to Durham. So it's a Geordie. So it's 3 out of the top 4 are Geordies. There we go. That's what we established. Nice.
Exactly. And yeah, as Josh Lodge makes a critical error, allowing for Marley Watts to just sail past out of the final chicane. That is going to be extremely costly, as he just gets it slightly wrong on the entry, just overshoots slightly, and allows Marley Watts to just take his normal line and just get past.
Yeah, so you could see Marley was applying that pressure, couldn't you? Yeah, you could see Marley was just turning open the tap a little bit. Bit more pressure here, bit more pressure there. And eventually Josh Lodge cracked under it. But by no means is that the end of this battle, because as before, as the whole race, they are still nose to tail. 4/10 of a second is the gap between Marley and Josh. And now it's Marley's turn to soak up the pressure from the Durham driver. Clatters over the curbs they go. Josh gets a really good run out of the first chicane. They're going to be side by side over the crest, down into the Villeneuve chicane. Lodge looks to recapitalize on his fellow Ferrari Marley Watts. They're 2x2 through Villeneuve. Almost like early on, they nearly bang doors, but somehow get away with it. And Marley comes back out on top with that position. He wants this overall podium, and he's going to make Josh work hard for it.
Some staunch defense from Marley and some very respectful racing throughout that little section there. It's very, very good to see that this battle is heating up, as it has been for the last 45 minutes that they've been glued to each other. And it very much seems to be that now that the roles are reversed, Marley Watts is now the person that's going to have to keep it on the edge. And yeah, it's going to be very, very interesting to see how Marley deals with the car being behind him now.
Yeah, you're not wrong at all. And I noticed there Marley Watts out the last corner, just tucked into the right a little bit earlier than he normally would. Of course, the slipstream range being 0.7 of a second and less. So Josh Lodge, not with the best end to that lap, just falls outside of that range. But Marley doesn't want to give him the slightest chance of getting a small toe down that front straight. He really does want this third overall to join Gilroy and Foster on the overall podium. But these two, as far as they're concerned, they are already set for the alumni podium. So it's just for bragging rights and for points, really. You've got your podium, well done, but you want more. You always want that little bit more. If you know you can get a result that's a little bit better, you are always going to try and push to go and get it. But Marley looks really comfortable and seems to have stretched that gap out a little bit as they lap Ruben Curtis in the Modern Motorsports Porsche. Good save, Ruben. I approve.
Very, very good. It's very, very difficult to keep that Porsche under wraps. So very good, very, very good to see that he's managed to keep it under control. And yeah, I mean, Marley doing a very, very good job to defend for what seems like another 2 or 3 laps worth of defending. So we'll see who comes out on top in this extremely hotly contested battle. It's reaching the dying embers of the race.
Yeah, look at the weaving from Marley down the front straight. Doesn't want to give Josh the toe. He knows that he knows that they're both as equal paced as the other, and any small advantage that can be gained or lost, they're going to try their absolute best to maximise their chances for this overall podium. Marley's absolutely wringing the neck of that car, must be said. He's almost drifting it around the first sector. We know that these wet tyres do like a little bit of lateral slide, but he's working them very, very hard, and maybe just seeking out some wet patches, there we go, to try and cool down the surface of that rubber, to try and have something to fight with when the race ends. Looking where the leader is, looks like that there's going to be 2 more laps to go. Obviously, Ben Gilroy is currently in turn 2 of this lap, so 2.5 laps to go for Watson Lodge. So plenty of time for even more action to kick off in this fantastic battle for third.
And with Marley being behind Josh for so long, I think that was the sort of window where he could save his tyres and, you know, just keep them in a decent window in which he could push for the final laps. and it's critical because if you have that extra grip going towards the final sort of minutes of the race, it's always good to have that safety net where you could just push your tires to no tomorrow, slide everywhere, so long as you keep on track and you finish in front of the driver that you're battling with, you've reached the summit of Mount Everest for all who care. That is a battle well done and race well managed. So,
yeah, it really is. With 50 seconds left on the clock. This is going to be 2 more laps to go for these two here. The 2 Ferraris, the RevSport International, the gorgeous Fire. It is Fire Effect, I think it is, but a fantastic RevSport livery looks so good on track. It really does. In front of the Durham driver, Josh Lodge. Both of these guys have enjoyed BUSR success in the recent past. Both want a little bit more if they can help it, but starting the final lap goes our race leader in a class of 1 this race. He led from lights out and looks very much set to bag the full points. Apart from fastest lap, actually, James White, before he retired, had fastest lap, but obviously he fell by the wayside after an incident with Ed Haskell a little bit earlier. I have noticed that Josh Lodge usually gains a little bit in the final sector, so with a drift like that from Marley and a big snap from Josh over the grass he goes, they're obviously giving it absolutely everything, but maybe a last chicane or Boulderberg-Bocht dive could be possible. We have to keep an eye on this one.
Appreciate the effort on the pronunciation. You're doing a brilliant job. But yeah,
probably not. Jason, our producer, is Dutch, and I know that this is Belgium, but he'll probably be a lot better at pronouncing these corners than me. Sorry, anyone watching who actually knows how to say these. I'm doing my best,
I mean, I've got a bunch of Dutch friends, and they tend to laugh at me whenever I speak anything related to Dutch, so I chose and opted not to because I know some of them are watching the stream at the moment. But
I've just received a message saying that I pronounced the Bocht from Boulderberg-Bocht correct. So at least I got like a third of it right. But
congratulations.
Into the final chicane for the final time in a class of 1. Ben Gilroy will leave the Jackie X-Bocht. Up to the line he comes. A dominant win from the new student championship leader. It's Ben Gilroy on top at Zolder tonight. Sam Knight has already crossed the line to consolidate 6th after one of his strongest ever drives. But absolutely in a class of 1 is all I have to say for Ben Gilroy. I've run out of superlatives.
And just a word of mention for Owen Goldsmith, who crosses the line in P2 in student class. Very good to see, with Jay Kirkham challenging for that P3 and is going to get it if all goes well, which is a brilliant result for the 2 drivers as well.
Yeah, there we go. Jay Kirkham's crossed the line.
And Marley entering the final chicane with Anna just crossing the line to take a brilliant alumni win. She's had a tumultuous race, but she's done an incredibly awesome job with Marley Watts crossing the line, and he takes that P2 and P3 overall as well.
Yeah,
which is a brilliant drive from both drivers who glued the entire race. Josh Lodge keeping him so honest throughout, and Cameron Gold crossing the line to take that P4 and alumni. Ruben Curtis doing some weaving on the straight, celebrating just finishing the race, which is extremely valid.
Yeah, so, I'm sure that Josh and Marley will have just enjoyed that more than anything. I'm sure there'll be congratulations and praise thrown around in the voice channel they are in. What a superb race that was. We got absolutely treated, some fantastic battles, especially at the start of the race. The rain did not disappoint. So it's Ben Gilroy, your eventual winner, from Anna Foster, Marley Watts, Josh Lodge and Cam Gold round out your top 5, with Sam Knight in 6th, his best results of the season. Owen Goldsmith, 2nd in student, finishes 7th on the road in the BMW, in front of Jay Kirkham and Kieran Nellums, and Ed Haskell round out your top 10. Danila Astrokantsev, Ruben Curtis, and Florin Mazalou round out the 13 cars to take the checkered flag, in front of James White, who looked like a race winner at one point. An unfortunate DNF with Jonah Turner, Charlotte Perkins, and Paige Wilcox's wheel disconnection, putting her on the sidelines. Well, there you have it. That was Zolder, and it was as wet as slippery as we thought it was, Pran. But some of the racing out there was absolutely superb.
Exactly, and I very, very much enjoyed being on the other end of the spectrum, really. I mean, I'm usually the one sort of driving these races, but I'm very happy that I got to commentate and watch such an incredible race pan out, because there was so much action from all the different sides of the grid. You had people like Marley and Josh fighting constantly throughout. We had at the start Anna and James are battling it away. You know, a brilliant, brilliant race throughout.
Yeah, it really, really was. And well done to everyone for seeing the flag. It's always a difficult circuit, Zolder, but they literally weathered the storm. And I'm sure we'll be very, very pleased to have made it to the end of the race. Let's bring in then the first of our interviews. Let's bring in our fourth place man overall, third in alumni. Let's bring in Josh Lodge. Josh, welcome to the commentary booth. That was an unbelievably tense race between you and Marley Watts. It really was. From start to finish, the gap was just so small the whole time. What did you make of it all from your point of view?
I was going to say, you thought it was tense. Imagine what it was like for me. No, it was great, actually. Brilliant racing. I had a lot of fun, to be honest. Yeah, especially at the start when there was, 4 or 5 of us at some points, just within probably a second. But no, everybody was really good, really clean racing. A lot of fun, to be honest.
Yeah, it's insane.
Just a shame about the
race.
Going off and losing the place to Marley at the end.
I was going to say, like, what was it like?
Can you get that? Can you understand that, Josh?
Keep that for me.
I was going to say, is that me or?
Yeah, do you want to restart that, Pran? You had a bit of an internet moment.
Oh yeah. Sorry, but
welcome back.
I mean, what was it like dealing with the wet conditions? Like, how was it coping with that extremely wet track while battling Marley for what felt like the entire race?
The wet track wasn't too bad, to be honest. The annoying thing with the server restart is that all the temperatures were a bit messed up. So I think I definitely did, and I think most people had tire pressures like way too high. I was in mid to high 31s on some of my pressures, so definitely wasn't getting the most out of them. But then after the stop, that's why I stopped slightly early, got them down a bit, and yeah, just battling Marley pretty much the whole time.
Yeah, it was really fantastic to watch, and you came away with a third place in alumni to bolster your championship tally. Next week we go to one of the tracks that no one really drives in Sede Corsa Competizione in Laguna Seca. Have you turned any laps around that? And if so, what are your thoughts on it?
I haven't driven there in quite a while, so some practice will probably be required. I'm assuming it'll be dry. I've never seen anything of Laguna in the wet. That'll be interesting if that happens. But yeah, not really sure. I haven't driven it in a long time. Certainly not since moving to the Ferrari and the 1.9 update.
Well, either way, I'm sure we're all looking forward to seeing how you get on there next week in, a car you haven't driven there. So, yeah, Josh Lodge, third in alumni tonight, fourth overall after a superb race. Very well done to yourself, and we'll see you next week, my friend.
Thank you.
So that was was the one and only Losh Jodge, as I mistakenly misspoke before the stream. It sounds better in mind. I think I might just stick with it. But either way, it looks like we're going to be unfortunately denied a Ben Gilroy interview. So let's bring in our alumni race winner, Anna Foster. Welcome to the commentary booth. A really well-controlled drive from you tonight to dominantly claim the alumni win in the end. How was it from your point of view, coping with the traffic, the weather, etc.?
Only issue I had other than the contact was track limits. Like, I don't know if you saw, but I was totally avoiding the curbs on the first game because I was like, that one warning, throw it all away.
Yeah, very true. There were a few to get drive-throughs. Yeah, there were a few to get drive-throughs out there. So you definitely weren't the only one struggling with that kind of with that sort of white line, I suppose. But you had a great battle at the start, just keeping in touch with Ben and with James White all over your tail. Were you particularly worried about letting Ben get away, or were you just focusing on your alumni?
Honestly, I was just focusing on staying clean, avoiding incidents. Because worst thing I could do in that position was just cause a crash, get a penalty, lose it all.
Fair enough. And how are you feeling now? Being.
I can't tell if it's internet or Pran's just got a stammer.
Sorry. It's my internet. I'm sorry, Unicorn. Yeah. Either way, how are you feeling being so like you're dominating the alumni championship? It feels like at the moment, and this alumni win is going to be beautiful for you.
The only thing I have to say to that is thanks, Angus, for not turning up to 2 out of 3 of the races.
Hey, don't thank me. Thank Cav and Adam. But no, on a serious note, that was a very, very well controlled, very well measured drive. You did everything you needed to do and kept your nose clean throughout and did avoid the track limit drive-through. So, Anna Foster, your alumni winners tonight. Very well done to you, and we'll see you next week. And there we go. Looks like we're going to be denied a Ben Gilroy interview. So our overall race winner continues to be elusive, as it turns out. So we're still yet to hear the soothing tones of Gilroy, but we can hope and pray for an interview further down the line. But yeah, what a race we were treated to tonight, Pran. The weather did not disappoint in any way, shape, or form, did it?
It did not. It was an insane race throughout, and I very, very much enjoyed commentating it. It was a very, very hectic race from the start to finish. A lot of different, very good to see. And, you know, the drivers showcasing their abilities in the wet is always beautiful.
Yeah, it really, really was. So just to give you a quick update on how the rest of the week looks, as Pran mentioned earlier, BUSR iRacing recommences on Thursday at the fantastic Tsukuba circuit in the Formula Ford 1600 cars. If you're a fan of the Walter Hayes Trophy or the Formula Ford Festival, this is going to be for you, with some fantastic racing action around one of the most famous circuits in Japan, followed by Formula One next week. And me being a complete moron, I don't know what track that is. Here we go. So next week, it is Miami. We're off stateside. So we're going stateside in ACC, and we're going stateside on Saturday with the F1. Brilliant. Just hopefully without the fake. Oh, I'm looking at it right now. Yeah, F1 Winter Championship, Miami's. Oh, why have they done it in columns and not rows? Oh, I read it as Cota, Zandvoort, Mexico, Miami, not Cota, Mexico, Hungary, Barcelona, then Zandvoort. That's annoyed me now. Why can't I do it like a grid? It's racing. Do it like a grid. But yeah, okay. It's not Miami next week. It's Hungary, which is actually probably better. I prefer Hungary as a track. So that works out just fine for me. But until then, I'll stop getting calendars wrong, and we'll all look forward to those future streams. So in the meantime, it's been Angus Fender and Pranav Kalevala in the commentary box. Thank you all very much for joining in tonight. We'll see you all very soon for another BUSR stream. Good night.
Good night.